Welcome to Caveman Cooking. Today we're going to be searing Triceratops tail. Just kidding. Bipedal hominids, humans, never coexisted with Triceratops dinosaurs. Those are myths. Be your own hero. However, there are some cold-blooded snakes out there. Speaking of tears, onions are what we're going to be learning about today. Onions are a gift that come in many varieties and colors, from green, yellow, red, white, purple. They're all a little different, with unique flavors that range from spicy to sweet. Eating raw onions are a favorite among ogres and oddballs, and you fall somewhere in between. Also, here's an advanced tip. I've learned, if you eat a lot of raw onions, the cave ladies tend to stay a little further away. So we're gonna cook onions. You're gonna learn to sweat, saute, and caramelize onions, and maybe a little bit more. I'm making this for you, my nieces and nephews. This is for Adrian, Maeve, Malcolm, Jordan, Riley, Kyle, Leona, Michaela, Carter, Taryn, and McKinley. Now I don't want any of you to lose your lunch looking at all this. So, I'm going to wear what's known as an apron. Now before we get started, you're going to want to wash your hands. And this time, use soap. Your health is most important. I'll wait for you. We're going to need a cutting board. I like one of this size because there's more surface area and it's very secure. You need a secure base. If yours is sliding around, you can put a damp paper towel underneath of it and it will be secure. Also, we're going to use a chef's knife. So if you live with your parents, you must get their supervision. Plus, you can teach them. However, if your name is Leona or McKinley, you're a level 4 cave kid, and you're going to be using something very special. The serrated butter knife, and your onion is going to be crying. The rest of us, Taryn, get the chef's knife. Now this is a chef's knife, and if you hold it like this, it's probably not balanced. So you want to choke up on it. Move your hand up towards the blade. This right here is called the bolster. You can put your thumb and your index finger over the bolster. You want the knife balanced in your hand like this. And you can wrap your thumb and finger around the bolster. You want to be careful to never put your finger underneath the blade's edge. See what works for you. You want the knife to be balanced and comfortable. And that's it. Now, a knife is a tool to be respected and enjoyed. Never abandon your knife. Never aim it at anyone. Never leave it in the sink. Always hand wash it, hand dry it. Always visible. This way, you're safe and content. Now I'm going to demonstrate a rolling cut. Firmly holding the knife, place the knife on the cutting board like this. Now notice which part is maintaining contact right here. And this portion of the knife is the sweet spot, from here to here, and this will be doing most of our cutting. Now imagine you're making a sort of a circular motion with your wrist. Here, I'm exaggerating. We're going to be going like this with our wrist right here, and the knife will be cutting going forward and back. This is a rolling cut. Now let's demonstrate a rolling cut on some green onions. We're taking things that are big and breaking them down into manageable components. These are some old green onions. Now let's try this rolling technique. While making this cut here, we're going to sort of slide in the green onions, and we're going to try to make equal size cuts. When your fingers get close to the knife edge, now it's time to use what's known as the claw. The claw is just a way of using a finger as a guide and holding all of your fingers active and back. You want to be very aware of keeping your ring finger back and your index finger back and your thumb back at all times. So you're going to hold the knife against the knuckle. You want this, not this. This, not this. Because if your finger is out like this, you could come down and tip your finger off. Now I'm not going to cut off the tip of my finger, and neither should you. You're going to manage your own risk here. When you go slow and you're mindful, you will be safe. So it's very important to maintain contact against the side of the blade and use your back thumb to walk it backwards while holding the food down, or you can use the side pressure of the knife to advance. Okay, this is much more complex. We just went from baby sloth to mammoth. So it's just important to keep your fingers back. But if they are close, you can do it safely by making this claw with having your knuckle as a guide and maintaining contact against the side of the blade. Just go slow and pay attention. You've got what it takes. Now let's cook an onion. This is a yellow or a Spanish onion, and this is a great all-purpose onion. This is a good onion to start with, and you want one that's about the size of your fist or smaller. Now, with your free hand, you want to hold it and apply slight downward pressure right here. and we're going to go just to the start of that sweet spot and just cut the top of this onion off. Then we're going to flip it over. I'm going to cut this onion in half like this. Now remove the skin and the first layer. The outside layers are thin and superficial. They lack the depth and flavors you need. You've got to get to the deeper layers to appreciate and understand your onion. Now, in solidarity with the level 4 cave kids, and for those who don't have a chef's knife, we're going to cut the first half with a serrated butter knife. Now, we're going to cut on the x-axis and then the y-axis. So first, we're going to cut away, this is the root end, we're going to cut away from the root end. The root end is like a bookbinder holding the onion pages. See, we want it to be connected. Next, we're going to cut on the y-axis. We're going to cook this onion by sweating it. Food that has more surface area is going to cook quicker, so you want smaller pieces so they can cook quickly. So this means we want our knife cuts to be a little closer together. It's also important to cut everything uniformly so that the pieces cook at the same rate. Whew, this dull knife is tearing and shredding. Ugh, we're just sawing away with what we have here. Ugh, mercy, Ogre Breath, mercy. One of the main ways to avoid crying is to avoid cutting onions. However, that's no way to live, and you can't afford that. Sometimes the tears are essential. Confront these challenges. Pain is the horse that beauty rides. Keep the air moving and use a sharp knife. We onion on. So for the other half, I'm going to use the chef's knife. Same technique, cutting on the x-axis and then rotate the onion 90 degrees and trying to keep in mind the rolling cut we just learned. You could chop it here by lifting the knife, but don't. Remember and try to do more of a rolling cut technique. Just continue with a similar spacing. Sort of let the knife's weight gently cut. We did it. These are diced. It's also crucial to practice. This is not a race, and do not judge yourself against those in other caves. And do not worry about going fast. That does not matter at all. And neither do grades, scores, awards, trophies, likes, money. Those things are not important. What matters is having a balanced life, integrity, showing up, hard work, and passion. Then you will be the results that matter. Now let's sweat this onion. Sweating is a technique that uses a gentle heat to draw out a little moisture, like it's sweating. It concentrates and unlocks flavor. It also softens the food a little bit. Now we're going to heat the pan to a medium heat. Maybe set the dial to about 40% to start. I'm using a little bit of olive oil because I love the flavor and it's a thermal conduit. But you don't have to use any oil or fat to sweat. Now we're going to add in the onions. We want a gentle sizzle. If it's a loud sizzle, then turn on the heat, because if it's too hot, our onions will start to darken or brown on the outside, and we want our onions to stay close to its original color. Sweating results in no color changes on the outside of the food. If things get too hot, just move it off the heat and adjust. It's okay. You control the temperature. You could put a lid on it. The onions will release a little bit of moisture, like it's a partial steam. But now we can't see it cook. So just keep the lid off for now. Cooking involves all of your senses: sight, smell, listening, tasting, feeling, and the most challenging sense of all is knowing when to let it be. Just give it some time. You don't need to do much. We're actively non-active. We're paying attention to our attention. We're just monitoring it so no dark coloring develops on the onions or on the pan. It might not look like much, but changes are happening over time. This is cooking. Sweating is quick. It might take about 5 minutes or so. Just stir it once in a while. Here we go. It's looking good. This is looking good. Yeah! Make sure it's getting evenly cooked. In general, you want to make sure there's space around the food for uniform cooking. Here, this is called a pan toss. You're going to move the pan forward and then quickly bring it back so the food's inertia hits the curved edge and bounces back over itself. Here we go. This is a pan toss. Here, flick this little onion back down there with its friends. You cannot change your friends, but you can change who are your friends. But don't sweat the small stuff. However, sometimes you need to sweat the small stuff, because the small stuff is all there is. Alright, it's nice. The story of this onion is about transformation. Now, after a few minutes, we can see these onions have softened and are a bit translucent. So these are done. They have no browning. We've unlocked the treasured flavors of this onion. What are you going to do with your onion? Anything you want. You're in control of your onion. Think of sweating as flavor building. Since we didn't brown them, they're not going to discolor a dish. You can use them in a soup, a sauce, a salad, an omelet, a pizza, or you can just enjoy them in their glory. They smell fragrant. Let's see how these taste. These are delicious. Tasting these onions takes me right back to my childhood. Or maybe it's the wooden spoon. These are amazing sweated onions. You gotta practice this. Next, we're gonna saute an onion. Damn. Saute is a French word which translates to jump or bounce. Oh, oui, oui. Pardon my French. Saute entails cooking in a small amount of fat at a higher temperature. The onion will develop some color or browning on the outside. Sauteed onions have more flavor than sweated onions. We want our onions cut into diced uniform pieces that are slightly larger than what we use for sweating. This is a different way to cut an onion, resulting in a more uniform dice. Now first, we are going to use a diagonal cut. I'm cutting almost all the way through it. If you cut all the way through the onion, oops, like this, it's okay. Just hold it together and trudge forward like the rest of us. Something will work out. Then, just like before, the X and Y axis cuts. This is very simple and an efficient way to cut an onion uniformly. Practice this. Saute is a method of cooking over relatively high heat, so set your dial to about 75%. You can adjust as you go forward. Now, how do we know when it's hot enough? Well, if we take a little flick of water, it'll evaporate, but that's okay, that's not hot enough yet. We're waiting for the pan to warm up. Now, take one little small flick of water. We want that water to stay as a little bubble. That shows it's a good spot. We know this pan is hot right now. This little bubble is floating on a water vapor layer. That's called the Leidenfrost phenomenon. But that won't be discovered until 1756. Thousands of years beyond my time. But what do I know? I'm a caveman cooking. This shows that it's very hot and a good place to start. So let's let it evaporate. Then we're gonna turn down the heat a little bit. We're gonna use a little bit of fat, enough to lightly coat the food. If you want to use butter, ignore everything I just said and keep the heat to about 50% because butter will burn and smoke if it's too hot. You can always turn up the heat if needed. We're gonna toss in our onions. You should hear a more pronounced sizzle. Yes, you should be sizzling. Just let your onions sit there for a minute or so. It's like they're frying on the outside. Oh, that baby's bouncing now. Look at them jump. Just give them a minute. And then we're gonna flip them over on the other side. We're cooking with a hotter heat, so we're keeping a close eye on the onion so it doesn't burn. Stay focused. Now you might notice a little bit of browning here. A teeny bit's okay, but we're keeping an eye on it. One common thing to pay attention to is if it's too hot, what can happen is that in the bottom of the pan, you might see a little bit of browning start. A little bit's okay, but you don't want it to go any further. So turn down the heat a little bit or add a little bit more oil so it doesn't get any darker, because we don't want any black on the bottom of the pan, because that would slightly off flavor the rest of our food. But we don't want that. We're all cave people and we appreciate the basics. Now if you do happen to notice that your onions turn black, that's burnt. Burnt onions. The next step is to throw them away. C'est pas tes oignons! C'est pas tes oignons! It's okay, some mistakes are required. We all grow at different speeds and we all burn things sometimes. We're wiser now. Just keep going, start over when needed. Back to the sizzle and monitor. What we're looking for is a little browning on the edges of the onion. Browning, or Maillard browning, is a chemical reaction that occurs between amino acids, which are protein blocks, carbohydrates are involved, the sugars are having a party, they're bonding and reducing and reacting. It's complex. Science can explain this better than me. I'm merely a caveman. Just understand that browning is flavor, and it's what we want. Think of bread. It's better when it's toasted. That's Maillard browning. That's why most foods taste better after they've been cooked. Browning creates more complex flavors. All right, look at how amazing these look. Look at that golden color. These are beautiful. These are amazing. Delicious. Tasting these sauteed onions takes me right back to, oh, sweet saute. How these sizzle. You've got to try this. These are sauteed onions. Next, we're gonna caramelize an onion. Caramelized onions are dark, sweet, and mysteriously delicious. We're going to caramelize onions by using low heat for a long time to really break down and transform the sugars in this onion. Here's another way to cut an onion. Cut the ends of the onion off and cut end to end, pole to pole, about 1/4 inch slices. Alternatively, you can caramelize diced onions, but make sure they're not cut too small or they will dry out. Let's cook several onions because they're going to shrink down considerably. Low heat. Heat, the great ancient motivator. You can add a pinch of salt if you want. We're going to start with the same low temperature that we use for sweating, or a little lower. Once the onions are going, check on them every 5 or 10 minutes. We're making sure nothing is burning and they're cooking along. Then we're going to maintain this temperature and let it continue cooking. There are different factors that affect the cooking duration. The temperature, the pan, the burner, but it's going to take at least an hour. The recipe for success is low heat and time. Caramelization is a different chemical reaction than Maillard browning. The natural internal sugars of the onion are molecularly changing slowly and becoming sweeter. We want them to be deeply brown. Caramelized onions develop a complex sweetness with intense depth. This smells incredible. I've been cooking these for about 3 hours on low heat. And as you can see, these do look sad, dehydrated, and hopeless. But they smell amazing. And surprisingly, all we need to do is add a little water to rehydrate and reincorporate the fond. Fond is the food material that is stuck to the pan. It looks pretty much burnt, but it's not. This is flavor, and I'm going to deglaze this by turning up the heat a little bit and adding in some water. I'm going to put this in here, and this process is called deglazing. It's freeing the stuck flavors from the pan. So look, all that flavor went back into these onions. Look at that, wow. Now these are caramelized onions. Now to take this to the next level, I'm going to add in a little bit of balsamic vinegar, just a little bit. Vinegar is an acid, and acids are a flavor enhancer. So start incorporating a little champagne vinegar into your food, which is very mild. And understand your food is not supposed to taste like vinegar, we're just using it to invisibly enhance and spotlight the original flavors. This smells delicious! Let's see how these taste. Oh my mammoth, wow! So much flavor. These are transcendent moment makers. Such a delight. Anytime you need some magic, you can use these caramelized onions. Alright, let's review. Sweated onions are cooked in a gentle heat to sweat and evaporate out some water. And the onions maintain pretty much their original color. Sauteed onions are cooked in a minimum fat at a higher temperature. They're sizzled and browned. Caramelized onions requires time to evaporate out the water and really transform the internal sugars. C'est pas tes oignons is a French expression, which translates to, it's not your onions. It's sort of like the English expression, none of your beeswax. So if someone were to say to you, c'est pas tes oignons, they're telling you, it's not your onions, it's not your concern, it's not your business. And what is your business? Your own onions, your choices. S'occuper de ses oignons translates to, take care of your own onions. And everyone around you. We all have to come to terms with our irascible onion. Stay away from the bogs of ignorance and the distraction traps. The back of the cave is filled with troglodytes and trolls, and they complain to feed on the pain. Your only way out is an education. Study the fundamentals, the classics, yourself, by investing in your long-term physical and mental health. Life can be terrible, and terribly beautiful. Look at these beautiful onions. Here. Holy saber-tooth. Oh, it burns, it burns. It's worse than cinnamon. See? There's a reason we cook with fire. And these caramelized onions will help you every time. You have important skills yet to be discovered and shared with everyone. It all starts with your onions. I'm excited to see what you create. Thank you very much. These are delicious. So good.